the logic is that if I don't go to university, I won't amount to anything. What it is that I need to do to get into university.
In Australia.
In Australia. So I arrived, started living my life, had to work 3 jobs to just make, between cleaning bathrooms and, working as a receptionist and working at a $2 shop. I did it all, right? Because it was like, okay, how do I, one, sustain myself? How do I survive? And how do I actually put myself through university? Because my parents were like not going to give me a cent.
You were a citizen in Australia?
I was at that point.
So did you get HECS?
Yeah, well, yes.
Did you have to pay
when
up
I
front?
went, no. When I went to university, I actually ended up getting HECS.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah,
I was going to say that's impossible almost. If you're 18, you need to get 20, however much grand.
Yeah, it was pretty, But even so, because my first course that I did was actually a private college, so I actually had to pay that. So I had to actually find a way of making the money to be able to pay for the college, and so this.
But if you want it enough.
And this is the whole thing.
You'll find a way.
And this is exactly what happened. I had to work 3 jobs and I still had to study full time and I had to do all of these things, but I managed. So that's what ended up happening. So after I saw my result, I was like, okay, that probably won't get me into any university this year. What's my next best step?
Yeah.
And so I went, right, what am I interested in? That was my first thing. What am I interested in? What is it that I want to do in the long term?
Which is a good start because I always say is when you're 17 or 18, you can't possibly know what you want to do with your life.
Oh, gotcha.
It's like, how do you start? I like to say what excites you.
Yeah.
Like whatever excites you, similar to what interests you.
Yeah.
They're probably, together. But what interests you, if you want to be a doctor because it excites you and you're like, yes, I want to help people. I love that stuff. Not for the money or because your parents want you to. And so, that's a great, just starting step. What interests you?
That was the thing, because I was like, if
you?
I have to study something, I had to be interested in it.
Yeah.
Interested in the subject.
The thing is, if you're not interested, you're competing against everyone in your class who is interested.
Exactly.
And you can't compete with that.
Exactly.
You can't compete with people who are staying up at night because they love, learning about this stuff.
100%.
It's just not possible.
100%. So that's then, that was my first thing, is like, okay, what am I interested in? What could I see myself? And this is essentially the way that I thought. What could I see myself actually sticking to, studying that I would actually stick to it and graduate from whatever it is that I decided to do. And so I had a couple of ideas. The most predominant was nutrition, because I thought, okay, well, I'm interested in food, what to eat, how to be healthy. All of these things were interesting to me. So I thought, okay, let me look for a nutrition course. And so I thought, and also at the time I thought, okay, well, sure, 17% might not get me into a university course, but it may in some university around somewhere, by application. So I thought, okay, let's just look into that first. And then one day I was going from work to home, actually, and I picked up a magazine and I opened it, and one of those new age magazines, and it basically had nutrition course, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, I'll go and inquire at this college. So it was a private college, and I went, inquired, figured out that, okay, this is quite interesting. This is something that I can see myself doing. Went in there, enrolled, started studying. So once that happened, the very first term that I was studying, this college was a natural medicine college. And
natural medicine is not antibiotics. It's all
That's right. So it's naturopathy, nutrition, massage therapy.
Yeah.
Basically things that are more naturally based.
Like a lot of plant stuff.
Yeah. So so this college, basically there was a naturopathic diploma and degree at the time. And I thought, okay, well, that sounds like something I have never heard of. What is naturopathy? But I also realized very quickly within that first term that food is limited. There's only so much that you can actually treat a person who's coming in with an ailment or a condition, and there's only so much food will do in those situations. I need more tools.
Yeah.
I need to be able to really treat someone in terms of their health. I thought that's not going to be enough. It's an essential foundation, but it's not going to be enough. And so I heard this naturopathy thing. I'm like, okay, well, that's interesting. So I decided to go and inquire about it and I found out that it was all to do with herbal medicines, nutritional supplementation, other ways of healing, methodologies and techniques and tools of healing that can support the body, and work with the body and how the body is actually operating. So I thought, okay, well, that is something that's really interesting, because at least those extra resources, those extra tools can help me with treating people. So I thought, that's it. I'll re-enroll for naturopathy instead. So instead of doing a 3-year kind of nutrition course, what it ended up being was a 4-year degree, you know, in naturopathy.
Yeah.
So I decided that was my path, and I did that, completed it, then decided to do, so there were 2 stages to this. There was the stage of actually completing the diploma part, the advanced diploma, and then there was the stage of completing the degree. So I completed the advanced diploma, then went on to do the degree. Then a few years after that, went on to do, and from the very beginning, I always knew that, you know, because I was in a situation where I had to put in my own resources and save up money and borrow and whatever, I knew that I needed to pay back those loans somehow, right?
And you can't afford to just, because a lot of people with HEX, it's like HEX is amazing, but it can also be like, you can just choose something you're not that passionate about because you can just choose something straight away. You don't have to pay for it.
Yeah.
It's, you know, and then and then 5 years later, you're still doing that and you're like, I never wanted to do this in the first place, but now I'm 26, and I feel like I'm really old when you're not.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, I don't want to have to restudy again, and I'm gonna be 30 by the time I finish. And it's like, you know, you're better off to kind of, if you're sure you don't know what you want to, if you don't enjoy the course, kind of cut it off. But I also like how you pointed out, what did you start off doing? So you just found
I started nutrition.
Yeah. So yeah, you found something you were interested in.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of built your way through there.
Exactly.
That's what I mean. You didn't know at 18 what you wanted to do, but you knew something you're interested in, and that's the starting point.
And you know what was fascinating, at the very last year of my course, one thing I knew was that specialists charged more, right?
Yes.
And that was something that, for me, with my mindset at that time, and the fact that I had all these bills to pay, was very appealing.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, well, if specialists charge more, then what is it that I need to do in order to become a specialist, and what kind of specialty do I want to have?
Yeah.
Because that was the other question. It's like, it's not everything that I'm interested in. So I asked myself that question again. What am I interested in? You know, and it so turned out that the answer was, I'm interested in babies. I love babies. At the time I was working for an obstetrician gynecologist. You know, we used to see lots of babies. It was lovely, cute. I mean, how cute are they? They're very cute. And so, so basically I spoke to my boss at the time and I said, hey, James, I'm thinking of specializing in pediatrics. And he's like, oh my God, that's the worst idea you've ever had. I'm like, oh, thanks, James, for your opinion.
Pediatrics is babies.
Yeah. So, so I go, okay, great. Thanks for your feedback. Why do you say that? And he said, look, you know, I thought of doing pediatrics before I did gynecology and obstetrics, but really what you have to consider is that your patient's not your patient. Your patient can't speak, and your patient really is the parent of your patient. So it's not really a good idea. I'm like, okay, now that you put it that way, I understand. And yeah, I agree. So then back to the drawing board. What am I going to specialize in? And it was kind of almost staring in my face the whole time. But then this one day I was going to clinic, because you have to do these million clinic hours to be able to graduate. I was going to clinic and there was this little tiny A4 poster, you know, on this staircase. It was a narrow staircase going up the stairs, and like in the middle of the staircase, there was like this poster, natural fertility clinic, blah, blah, needing clinic hours. I'm like, fertility, that's it. That's what I'm going to do.
It's babies, but then it's also not pediatrics.
It's creating babies.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm the patient is the actual patient.
Yeah.
You know? And so so I thought fertility would be interesting. So immediately from graduating, I started to work with people in that context, you know, helping them be in the best shape that they could, best health, and optimizing their health and fertility, hormonal balance, you know, all of those things.
So all they say, they can have a high chance of having a
Absolutely.
baby. And these would typically people who have tried and failed?
At the beginning, it was all sorts of people. You know, if they basically said that they wanted to prepare to have a baby, or that they had been trying for a little bit to have a baby and just wanted to improve their health, it was all types of patients. I mean, now we're very, very narrow and very specific in terms of who you specialize in.
But now you've got your own business around this.
Absolutely.
This was when you were working at someone else's
clinic.
That's
right. So I was working as a contractor, basically. You know, I started my business at the age of how old was I? 21. I was 21, and the reason that I started my business was really because I couldn't get a job. So after I finished my degree, naturopaths, they didn't really get jobs. So these days is a little bit different. You know, there are different types of jobs and different things that people can do. But you know, back when I graduated, it was like, okay, there's no jobs, so what am I going to do to make money? And I hadn't just spent 4 years,
to not earn money.
You know, to not earn money, and not only that, to work as a assistant in a health food store, getting $14 an hour. I'm sorry, but that's not really what I've done this whole thing for.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the only other option was, because part of my degree had a massage therapy component, was to become a massage therapist, massaging hairy legs from men. I'm like, no, thank you very much. So that was not my thing. So then, you know, I decided to start doing the whole health, fertility, hormonal balance, you know, and I did that for many, many years, and then decided to do a master's in reproductive medicine and human genetics. So then I completed that at Sydney Uni, and meanwhile, you know, running my own business and having a team and doing all of those things that you have to do to make sure that things, you know, move forward.